Stop talking about comic books or I'll kill you. I don't care if the Hulk could defeat the Man of Steel.
Hey there, comic fam. Bullseye Bob here, and welcome to Everything Comics. And of course, I'd like to welcome you to the 33rd episode of Having Comics with My Coffee. This is the show where I get together with you in a local coffee shop, drink some great coffee, and I talk about the comic books I picked up this week, and that came out on New Comic Book Day, Wednesday, July 22nd. And as you can see, I'm coming to you live and in living color from the Refuge Coffee House right here at 9217 Southeast Foster Road in Portland, Oregon. And this is where we filmed the show, and I just love this place. It's one of the best coffee houses here in Portland. They serve a mean cold brew, and I really love it here. And so if you're ever in town, let me know you're going to be here. I'll meet you here. We'll get some coffee. We'll talk about comics, talk about anything you want. But I'd love to get together with you. Well, before we get into our reviews, we have some announcements today. And right about now, you're going to see a timestamp on the screen if you like to skip those announcements. But here we go. Here's the first one. Last night on my channel, we had Battle Draft 2020, the Legion of Doom. That's right. Hero and the Kid was there. Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers, Dylan from Dylan's Comics, and Bueller from Comics with Bueller, and of course yours truly, Bullseye Bob, all got together and we drafted our best villain team, the Legion of Doom. It was a fun time. I always love getting together with those guys and doing a battle draft, and last night was just absolute fun. The video is already dropped on the channel. Go check it out. It just a great fun time. One of the surprises of the night was Hero and the Kid. They did this thing where every villain that they brought up, they gave some lyrics from a song that fit that villain. That was a lot of fun. That was a really cool dynamic that they brought. But anyway, check out that video. It's there, and we hope to be able to do a lot of these going forward because it's just a fun time. And for the next announcement, as you know, last Wednesday I was supposed to interview Anthony Cleveland from Mad Cave Studios. He has a new comic book coming out called Stargazer. We were going to talk about that book, talk about his career, and get to know him. And he ended up getting sick, and so we had to postpone. So this next Wednesday night, July 29th, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be interviewing Anthony Cleveland. It's going to be a fun time. Make sure you check it out. And then if that wasn't enough, the very next day on the 30th, also 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're having our monthly roundtable going over our best comic books of the month. Bueller, Robbie, Dylan, myself. Maybe we'll have another guest on. We don't know yet. But we're going to be going over the best, our rundown of the best comics of the month of July. A lot of great comics came out this month. I can't wait to hang out with those guys. Of course, I just love talking comics, so I could hang out with those guys for hours. On to our next announcement. As you know, I'm on another show. That's right, on the Comics with Bueller channel. Every Monday morning, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm on the new Coffee and Comic Show. And this is the show where Bueller and I get together, have some coffee, and we talk about the latest subjects in the comic industry. It's a lot of fun. What he does is every Wednesday on New Comic Book Day, he drops his preview video. It is the most watched preview video on YouTube. And on that video, he will pose a question. And we use your comments in answer to that question on the show. Last week we had a lot of fun. The subject was, where do you see the comic industry in 5 to 10 years? This was a passionate subject for a lot of people. A lot of comments were left, and the conversation on it was great. This week's subject, I think we're going to have a lot of fun with, because this is a subject that Bueller and I just don't agree on whatsoever. And it's to verify or not to verify. That's right. Is it worth getting comics autographed? That's the subject. Again, we don't see eye to eye on it. I think it's going to be a great discussion. But go check out his video. Leave a comment yourself if you want to weigh in that conversation. And then join us on Monday morning as we talk about it. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Well, that's the announcements, and now it's time to get on with the show. And as you know, we start off every week with the cover of the week. And this week's cover of the week was really tough because there was a lot of them, a lot of great covers that came out. And I almost went with my boy Daredevil. Marco Cicchetto is back doing the artwork on that book, and the cover on Daredevil number 21 was incredible. And so I could have picked that cover, but I didn't. Because another book came out this week, and that was Wolverine number 3. And yes, I am talking about the Adi Granoff cover. Oh man, as soon as I saw this, I flipped out. It is one of the best Wolverine covers I have ever seen. I ended up going out and immediately buying it, when it went live. And I know it sold out pretty quickly. But it is on its way to me now. I got the shipping verification, but there it is on the screen in all its glory. I think that is such a phenomenal painting of the character Wolverine. Thank you, Adi Granoff, for giving us such an awesome, awesome cover. All right, so on to our reviews. And the first book that we have this week is X-Men vs. Fantastic Four number 4. This is written by Chip Zdarsky and art by Terry Dodson. Now, this is the final issue of this 4-issue miniseries. And Chip Zdarsky, once again, has proven just how great of a writer he is. This picks up where it left off last time, where we have most of our heroes being attacked by something that I can't believe hasn't been created before, and that is Doombot Sentinels. That's right, you heard exactly what I just said. Doombot Sentinels. I don't know how nobody came up with that concept before, but I'm so glad Chip Zdarsky did, because I was blown away as soon as even I heard about what was going on. So the fight that ensues takes Franklin out of the cure that Doom actually has for him. In the midst of the battle, his mom goes out to try to fight off these Doombot Sentinels, and he decides to let go of the cure and go out there and help Sue. When the battle is all over with, Franklin is far from being cured, but this cements his decision to leave his family and go join all the rest of mutants on Krakoa, where his condition is slowed down, and that will give them time to figure out how to cure him. The way this book ended up was definitely not how I thought it was going to end. The parts with Doom, which I wanted the book to be more Doom-centric, that's not the way he took it. I mean, the book is called X-Men versus Fantastic Four, not X-Men and Fantastic Four versus Doom, which I would have loved also. But anyway, I digress. Really what ends up happening in the end is Doom's foiled, Franklin Richards goes to Krakoa, and then in the end, we have this scene, cool scene, where Professor X and Magneto goes to visit Reed Richards, and it's an epic moment. It's one of those that you don't want to miss. I'm not going to give away what the gist of the conversation was, but I think it sets the tone going forward on how heroes and the rest of the Marvel Universe is going to deal with all the X-Men, the mutants that are on Krakoa, because it's a whole different dynamic now. You don't want to miss that. Check it out. It's definitely one of those books that you don't want to miss. X-Men vs. Fantastic Four, number 4, ends well. Okay, on to our next book. And the next book we have is Decorum, number 3, by Image Comics. This one's written by Jonathan Hickman, and the artwork is by Mike Huddleston. Okay, folks, I think we're really looking at the future of comics in this book. Before I get into the review, I just want to mention that this is damn near a piece of art. The nuance of the artwork and the phenomenal storytelling is a cut above what we normally see. Huddleston has most of the pages done with some amazing line art that conveys motion, and not only just motion, but emotion in the greatest of ways. All the artwork is done in such a way where there's this minimal coloring. It's almost monochrome. It was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. I know that there was some brush work as well as some possible pen work as far as the inking went, and that was phenomenal in and of itself. And Hickman's writing, oh my gosh, his dialogue inside of this was absolutely superb. So we get a little more into the story this time without any confusing openings. We have the two main characters. Imogen, who is the assassin, has brought Neha Sori Sood, I think that's how you say her name, and brought her to the Sisterhood of Man, which is a assassin's guild where she was trained. And from that point forward, it's just a lot of fun. There's like this place where you have like maybe it's a captain of the guard or something like that, but it's a pretty buff woman, and she's doing interviews of all of the new candidates that are going to be brought into the sisterhood. And so we go through these different interviews, which are in and of itself a lot of fun. And then we get to Neha's interview, and she starts waxing poetically about who she is. And this like Sergeant of the Arms is like, this is an insult. Why are you bringing somebody like this here? She didn't even know how to kill. And so anyway, I'm just going to leave it at there because I don't want to give away the rest of the book. But really, the dialogue is insanely well done. I really enjoyed reading this. In the midst of this story so far, there's not a character that's really hooked me yet, but I gotta say that Hickman's characterizations are phenomenal. Every single individual character is very diverse from the one previous, and the way he's developing them, I'm glued. I can't wait to see what happens next. But emotionally, I haven't connected with anything yet, and I think that's coming because he's really starting to develop the main characters. Okay, so on to our next book, and the next book is The Man Who Effed Up Time from Aftershock Comics. This one is written by John Layman, and by the way, John Layman also did the lettering inside of this book. That's something to note. And the art is by Carl Mostert. Now, so far the story has been a lot of fun. I've really been digging it. Every issue is just as entertaining as the one previous, and the story has flowed, I think, very nicely. So since book one, we've had a full-blown mystery going on. Our main character is named Sean Bennett, and in the last book, we have him going back in time to basically try to fix everything that happened in the first book, and what we find out is he messes up time even more and ends up in the very beginning of time. And when he gets there, he finds his future self, who is basically pulling the strings on this whole story, and finds out his future self hates his old self for whatever reason we don't know yet, and strands him there. And what ends up happening? Again, he tries to go and fix time and messes it up even more. I think we have a definite pattern developing, because now, in the midst of this, we have a third version of Sean Bennett that shows up. And so he just keeps trying to fix time. He keeps messing it up as he tries to fix it. And we're starting to find out that it probably was not him that came to him in the beginning and told him he needed to go forward and do something in time. So I know that may be kind of confusing to hear, but it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what happens next. The artwork is great. I think it really works for what they're doing inside of this. I love the coloring. It's not too over the top, but it really pops on each page. And so this is a really fun work by Aftershock. If you're not reading this one, definitely pick it up. I think you definitely have to pick it up from the beginning, because you miss a lot of the nuance of what's going on. But it is a great comic book, so check it out. So for our next book, we have Flash, number 758 by DC Comics. This is written by Joshua Williamson and art by Christian Deuce. I don't know how you say it, but that guy. Anyway, here we go, folks. We're almost at the end. Williamson's run is almost over. I have enjoyed this run so much. I'm really planning that when it's all over and done with, I'm going to go back to the beginning and read them all consecutively without the monthly time in between them, because it was just that good. So in this book, we have the aftermath of what happened in the last book, and that's Reverse Flash basically put Barry in through the ringer. He sent out the Legion of Zoom to go ahead and attack different points in the city, and Barry basically had to make the decision on whether to go save those points of the city or save his family, and he chose his family. And so this book, we find him looking at the city in those different places where the Legion of Zoom attacked. And now he's starting to see the consequences of not being able to go help everybody like he normally does. He can see it in their eyes, he can see it in their faces. Where were you? Luckily, nobody died, but still you can feel the gravitas of what this has done to Barry. So Barry, wanting to get after Zoom, he starts to think, I gotta think like him. How do I find him? And he basically figures out that Thawne is probably going to go to his childhood home, so that's where he goes. And not only was this a trap where the entire Legion of Zoom is at, and they bring Barry to his knees, but Reverse Flash finally gets what he has always wanted, the desire of his heart, and I gotta say, it's sick. I'm going to leave it there. You got to check it out for yourself. The last page of the comic book, true to Williamson's writing on this whole run, leaves you in a place where you're just like, oh my gosh, can't wait to see the next issue. Flash number 758. It's a phenomenal run. Definitely, if you haven't been on this, I probably wouldn't hop on at this particular point, but you got to be into Williamson's run on the Flash, because it is incredible. And next, we got Daredevil 21, and of course that comes from Marvel Comics. This is written by Chip Zdarsky and art by Marco Cicchetto. I love when Cicchetto is on these books, and not only did he did the interior artwork, but he did a phenomenal cover for this issue. So guys, you know how excited I get when Daredevil comes out. It's one of the highlights of my month. And it feels just so good to have my boy for the last 2 months consecutively and back in the full swing of things. And Chip Zdarsky has been killing it on this book, and as we see his personal life or interviews, he's a lighthearted, comical, looks like he doesn't take anything seriously type of guy. And I just want to say that when it comes to his writing, he definitely takes it seriously. This guy knows Matt Murdock. He's done such an amazing job in Daredevil. I can't wait to see future work by Chip Zdarsky. I know he's got some creator-owned stuff that's coming out here pretty soon, and I know that. I really hope, like we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. I know Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers has said it as well. He would be a phenomenal writer, ongoing, on the Fantastic Four title. I don't know if we'll get that, but I really would love to see Chip Zdarsky on the Fantastic Four. And then Marco Cicchetto, you can't go wrong with this guy's pencils, especially when it comes to the character Daredevil. You can tell he really loves to draw this character. Artwork was amazing. So this issue was a real treat. We're in the aftermath of the Battle of Hell's Kitchen. And of course, last issue, all hell broke loose, and we know that the Stromwin's grand plan were thwarted. Because what they didn't count on was the citizens rising up. Those citizens rising up were the catalyst of them bringing Matt to a place where he started to understand who and what Daredevil really was, and then that brought him to a place of understanding who he was. It was an amazing issue, and this issue is the aftermath of that. And what we see, true to Matt's word, he's going to turn himself in for the murder of that young boy that we got way back in the beginning of this run. Oh, but wait. There is a twist to turning himself in. On his way to the jailhouse, we have a scene where Foggy Nelson comes in and he proposes something different about the way Matt should turn himself in, and I think it's going to be a kind of a cool twist. I don't know how Zdarsky is going to run it, but I have faith in him, so I think it's going to be awesome. Spider-Man shows up in this particular issue, and the interchange between him and Matt, it was phenomenal. I want to give it away, but I'm not. You got to check it out for yourself. It's only about a page, maybe a page and a half, but I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's definitely going to be interesting going forward to see where Chip Zdarsky takes the character, but I am on board. Stay tuned, folks. I think he's just getting started. And so next we got Batgirl number 47. Of course, this is by DC Comics. This one was written by Cecil Castellucci and art by Robbie Rodriguez. And so in this book, we have the beginning of a new storyline. So this is a good hopping on point if you haven't been on the Batgirl book. And this is also a tie-in to the Joker War. So let's go ahead and get into it. The story starts with Barbara Gordon basically about to chill at her house. She's got her sweats on, she's got a t-shirt on, she's got a glass of wine, she's throwing the TV on, and as she's just about to settle down, she notices there's things out of place inside of her room. And as she gets up to investigate, boom, out comes the Joker. That's right, Clown Prince himself, Mr. J, and because of the fact that we know that he's taken over Wayne Enterprises and he's gotten into a lot of the gadgets that Batman has, what he finds is the device that actually turns off the chip that's in her back that helps her to walk. Because remember, she was paralyzed for the longest time. And so now Joker has this thing, he presses the button and bam, she can't walk anymore. This fight in the room continues to ensue, and in the end, what we get is Barbara Gordon basically taking some type of pole and jamming it into Joker's back. It looks like it paralyzes him because he goes down to the floor where she's at, and that's where we're kind of left, is both of them down on the floor, kind of in this immobilized state. I don't know how it's going to end up, but here we are with another tie-in to the Joker War, and I'm going to talk just a little more about that in just a minute. Now, the story in and of itself, it flowed very nicely. I don't think it really had anything to do with what came previously. So it truly is a good hopping on point. The artwork was good, but I'm going to really talk about this tie-in to the Joker War stuff here in just a minute. So we'll get into that. And so the next book that we have is Detective Comics number 1024. This is also from DC Comics, written by Peter J. Tomasi and art by Brad Walker. So here we have another tie-in to the Joker War. And of course, last issue, we had the Talon from the Court of Owls Lincoln March being resurrected by the Joker to come after Batman. And so in the end, we end up having Two-Face in this suit of armor, and then Talon himself coming after Batman. That's where we were kind of left off. And this issue starts in the midst of that fight. And what we end up having is Batman, while the fighting is going on, he basically appeals to the side of Harvey Dent that's good, and that part of him, he listens as Batman keeps talking to him. And finally, in the end, he turns, and both of them end up taking Talon down. And we end up in this place where Batman takes the bullet out of his head that Joker basically used to turn him into a place where the coin doesn't stop that bad side of him anymore. And this was all part of Joker's master plan in this scenario leading up into the Joker War. Now, I think this Cult of Two storyline was a good idea. It started off great, and I think the plan was to always have that bullet taken out of his head. I really feel, after reading this story, that in the midst of what DC was doing, I think what they did was made Peter J. Tomasi turn it into a tie-in to the Joker War, and this is where I have a problem. And I'm going to go on just a little bit of a rant here. And so, yes, so I think the story suffers from the fact that this wasn't what was originally intended. You have this, what was actually a really good storyline, all of a sudden going off into left field, and it became the Joker's plan. This resurrection of Lincoln Mark, it just didn't make sense to the original part of what was going on, and it just all kind of ties up. And really, it has nothing to do with what we're seeing inside of the Joker War. We had this whole 8-issue series called Their Dark Designs leading up to what we have now, which is the Joker War. And none of this has been taking place. So where does this fit inside of the greater scheme of things? And I'll say the same thing about the Batgirl issue that I just reviewed, and then also the Nightwing issue from last week. We have all these 3 despairing different storylines all leading up into the Joker War, and none of them tie in together. None of them make sense when you look at the larger picture. And this is one of those things that comic book companies do that really bothers me. In the last issue, last page of the Nightwing book, you have basically Barbara Gordon being taken down by not only the Joker, but also Punchline, and then also Nightwing, Dick Grayson, who's now being controlled by the Joker, and all 3 of them are there. And that, if that happened, how is it that Barbara Gordon is paralyzed inside of her house and she's got Joker on the floor with him? It makes no mention of what happened inside of the Nightwing issue, and if that did happen in proximity, there's no mention of it. And so it just doesn't make sense. It's not a real tie-in. Just because you bring the Joker onto the scene or you bring Punchline onto the scene doesn't necessarily mean it actually ties into the story. But because of the way they title it on the book, we're led to believe that they're actual tie-ins to the greater narrative, and they're not. I really wish comic books wouldn't do this because I feel duped. The stories in and of themselves, they're not bad, but they're definitely a marketing tool, and it just kind of irks me. So there's my rant. I really wish they would have been true tie-ins to the overall story. It would have made it so much more exciting. And even if they weren't true tie-ins, they could have done a long way to kind of make them all cohesive. It doesn't take that much to cross over to a cubicle or to make a phone call to somebody across the country and say, this is what I'm doing, what are you doing, how can we connect it? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do me a favor, leave a comment down in the comment section and let me know what you think about all the different tie-ins and how comic book companies use them, and actually you really have nothing to do with the overall real storyline of what's going on. And for our next book, we have Kids number 5. And of course, this is done by Ablaze Comics. Written by Aurélien Ducoudray, and the art is by Jocelyn Joret. Here we are, issue number 5, and I'm loving this book even more. Like I said before, think Sandlot meets The Walking Dead. We have a group of kids that are at play in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, and what they do is they kind of hole up at a house that is safe and kind of live there for a bit until it becomes unsafe, and then they move to another house where it's safe again. And in the midst of it, their playground is where all the zombies are at, and they love just taking out walkers. But there's a lot of really, really cool things going on inside of this book. The nuance between the kids, their relationships, the emotions that they're going through, the angst of what it's like going through that transition from child to adolescence, and from adolescence, into adulthood. All those type of things are all wrapped up inside of this book, and that's kind of where the book centers. It doesn't really center on the zombies so much, even though we know it's there. It really focuses on the characters, and I really love it. And then especially because of the fact that the characters, they're done in like a cartoony type form, kind of like Sunday newspapers funny type form. It really makes it work. It keeps it this innocence, while at the same time the gravitas of how serious and gruesome those type of situations would be. That's still on the table there as well. So I think they've done a really good job in creating a comic book that really caters to both sides of that, and I'm loving it. Last book, we had our kids about to step out and do something stupid, which is go to a mall to kind of celebrate one of the kids' birthday, even though they know they probably shouldn't go there. And it all goes wrong. There's some dark stuff that happens inside of this comic book. I'm not going to give it away, but definitely this is one you should read. The last few pages, they're really gruesome. Really situations come up that are just over the top. But because it's done in this like cartoony format, it blows me away how they're able to bring that type of serious and gravitas, but at the same time keep it so innocent. Very cool. If you're not checking it out, you should be. It's kids from Ablaze Studios. It's been a great comic book so far. All right, so now we get into our next book, and it's Batman number 95 by DC Comics, written by James Tynion IV, art by Jorge Jimenez. Now we get into the real start of the Joker and the main Batman title, and now we're starting the Joker War, and this is the one you should be reading. So in this book, we start off with the understanding that Joker has taken the grand designs of the other villains in the group that originally went to the designer, and he's used those to basically bring the city down to its knees and take everything away from Bruce Wayne. He took their master plans and put it into effect for his own purposes, and that's kind of where we start off, and we're seeing it to great effect. We're seeing Batman in a place that we probably have never seen him before. The Wayne Enterprises has kicked him out for possibility of embezzlement. The police are now after him because it looks like he's been directly supporting the Batman, a vigilante. We have his home, Wayne Manor, being seized. The Batcave has been taken by Joker. Wayne Enterprises is under the control of Joker and all of his thugs, and he's taken all of Bruce's money. So Bruce is in this place, a really bad place. It kind of reminds me of the Born Again storyline where Kingpin takes everything away from Matt. That's kind of what's happening here. Just about everything has been taken away from Bruce Wayne, and he's about the most vulnerable I've ever seen the character. And in that vulnerability, he starts going to some places that he created in case of something like this had happened. And I guess inside of Wayne Enterprises, he created these 4 mini bat caves, or not 4, I think 6 mini bat caves, and each one had a certain purpose. And there's one that he specifically wants to go to, and he shows up there, and he thinks he can hold up there for a little while, get a breather, and maybe start to use it as a base of operations. But no, guess what? Punchline is already there, and Batman is put in a very bad position because at the end of the book, we see that the Bat plane shows up, and they're about to attack that cave with Batman inside of it, and it's just a little room. So what is our hero going to do? I don't know, but I'm so on board for the Joker War. I really love the way James Tynion has been writing this. The artwork so far through the whole series has been incredible, and it's just a lot of fun. This book has been just a lot of fun. This is a great time if you're a Batman fan because James Tynion is killing it on this book. Batman number 95, DC Comics. If you're not getting it, I'd probably say you're not in comic books or you don't like the character Batman, because everybody is on this book. Anyway, check it out, folks. And now we come to my pick of the week. And this week it's Kanto and the Clockwork Fairies by IDW. This book is written by David Bueller. The art is by Drew Zucker. Colors by Vittorio Astoni. and the letters by Darren Bennett. Now, I was excited last week when I watched Bueller's preview video, and I saw that it was this week that this book is coming out. As you know, last year, this was one of my favorite reads. It's actually one of my favorite reads of all time now. That's how good it was. And I just loved the whole series. It was just unbelievable, and I loved it. So here we have a one-shot from the original creators, and I'll tell you what this book did for me. It took me back to that feeling I had when I was really reading the original series. I loved the landscape, I love the artwork, I love the colors, and it brought me back to that feeling I had when I was reading the original Canto series. These guys have really done a phenomenal job, and I just, my hat's off to them, because it's really sparked emotion, a real visceral emotion inside of me that is a good feeling. And I think that's what brings this book as one of the highlights for last year and then now going forward, because this title is, we're gonna have another mini-series. This was a one-shot, which is great. It just wets my whistle and brings me back to what I remember from last year. But I think it's next month, we get an ongoing series for at least the next 5 months. And I can't wait. It's incredible. First off, the artwork inside of this book is amazing. The characters that are created and the creatures are so uniquely drawn as we see this world built out even further. The line work is so much fun. It's like a well-shot movie in the hands of a good editor. I mean, really the panel composition, the colors, everything, the way that it comes out, it pops. And then the writing, my gosh. David Bueller, he's done so much to bring the heart of this character, heroism, but you know, in the midst of that type of thing that you want justice, you want heroism, but at the same time, there's an innocence that's brought to it that really makes you, like, gets me behind the character so much. I have grown so attached to the Canto character that at this point, if something were to happen to him, I think I would actually really get emotional. That's how much heart and soul that they brought to this character. So Zucker's artwork, it really brings out the innocence of the character and a purity, and in that innocence and purity with the heroism that's brought out, I really root for, and I'm behind the character Canto. I want to see him win. And then you bring the coloring in from Vittorio Astoni. I don't know who Vittorio Astoni is. I've never noticed his work before, but I'm definitely noticing it now. And I would say that, I mean, the way it's coupled with everything else that's done inside of this book, it's just, I can't praise it enough. So the story revolves around the aftermath of Canto's people becoming free in the last series. And now they're on the move to find their new home. And on the way there, he stumbles into a cave where a witch has basically taken fairies captive, and not only captive, but she's clipped their wings and given them clockworks so that she can keep them in captivity and basically experiment on them. Really bad place, but our hero gets down there, and now he's got to figure out a way to save these fairies. I'm going to leave it at that. That's enough premise for you to get into the book. It is so well done. By the end of it, I was on the edge of my seat cheering for my character, because I just love the character Canto. I mean, that's just how much the team has brought the heart and soul of this character to me. I root for this guy. So if you haven't been reading Canto, definitely go pick up the original graphic novel, or definitely go pick up the trade paperback. I think you can still get some of the floppies. Number one's kind of hard to get still, but it is an amazing book. It's so much fun. It's my pick of the week, and I really can't wait for that next mini-series to come out. So there you go, folks. There's my reviews for the week. Hope you enjoyed those. And of course, we always end the show with my panel of the week. And this week's panel of the week comes from Daredevil number 21. And there is a page where Daredevil is basically going to go back and turn himself in. And as he's doing this, Foggy has convinced him to turn himself in, not as Matt Murdock, but as Daredevil. I won't tell you why. You need to read that for yourself. It's pretty cool. But in the midst of it, we have this scene where Daredevil's putting the suit back on. And I don't know why, but the panel where he's wrapping the wraps around his wrist, I loved it. I mean, this is one of those pages where Marco Cicchetto, you can tell he really loves the Daredevil character. And so there it is. That's my panel of the week. Absolutely loved it. Hope you guys enjoy it too. There you go, folks. So that's the show. I hope you enjoyed the reviews this week. It's really good being back in the swing of things. Do me a favor, guys, if you like the content that I'm putting out, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button. And as always, I always tell you, remember, support your local comic shop, and Excelsior. Y'all take care.